and smelled it, it would smell like roses.
I'm resident of Colorado.
What part of that did you get?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm
Do you know how to
resident. It clicked over and you were holding your finger, so I don't know. I'll have to go back and look for an upload. I'm resident of Colorado for you too. This is my buddy Patrick McCray, author of the Dark Shadows Daybook Unbound. We're here to discuss Dark Shadows 1841 Parallel Time, episode 1226. We're literally 10 episodes away from the flashback.
Only on Dark Shadows is that right around the corner.
That's true.
That's like 2 seasons of a British TV show.
Yeah, that's true. This narration is done by Christopher Penock, which I like. He doesn't do a lot of them. And Gabriel, by the way, his character Gabriel is in this episode. Quentin has been out the past 2 episodes, but they do keep mentioning his character. I know appendicitis comes on pretty quick, but do you think he was maybe getting sick at this point?
He might have been feeling it. I mean, I haven't had it. I've been told I'm at risk. And from what I understand, you know it. I mean, I think it's what killed the kid, the little brother in the play Our Town.
Yeah.
You know, they talk little what's her name's brother. You know, the girl in Our Town, whoever she is. I don't know. Daisy.
We get a lot of Melanie in this episode. They're continuing her lineage story in this. I like how each episode, nothing feels like filler at all through this arc.
No, and I can already tell you, I there are a lot of good scenes in this one.
Yeah.
I think again, you know, now that Pennock's back, it's anything with him.
Yeah.
You know, he shows up and he cuts a rug wherever he is. He's real Eddie Haskell in this one too. Good evening, Mrs. Cleaver. I won't do anything to hurt you. Yeah, and Flora, it's Flora, right? It's still Flora.
Yeah, Flora.
Flora, I really have to question the Collinsport schooling system or whatever private tutor they got, that she should read this note and think, oh, there's nothing unusual about meeting this man who's been driven crazy alone in a garden at midnight. What could go wrong?
This is that note is every horror cliche you'll ever have in a slasher.
The note was coming from inside the house.
Yeah, literally. And my favorite scene in this is when Melanie's in the woods and she hears a sound and she thinks it's Kendrick, because Kendrick, at the beginning of this, we saw Kendrick saw Melanie go into her trance, go into her other personality, and he questions Julia Collins over this. I'll get back to that, because when Melanie snaps out of it, she chases after Kendrick. Julia can't stop her. Flora can't stop her. So she just goes, and they're going to have Quentin go after her when he gets back from the village. And when she's in the woods, she hears a sound and she thinks it's Kendrick. She thinks she's caught up to him. And it's believable because he hasn't been out of the house that long. So, surprise, surprise, though, it's Christopher Pennock's Gabriel. This scene is really, really creepy and really tense, and great writing. I love the way they shoot it, and I love the way Nancy Barrett and Christopher Pennock perform it.
Because I thought we'd seen the last of him.
Yeah.
No. He's back and he's better than ever. So we get some things here. We get not one but 2 performances by Nancy Barrett.
Yeah.
Because we get, and the crazy stuff is really creepy.
Yeah.
You know, it's right up there with Reagan McNeil coming into the party and saying, "You're all going to die up there," or "You're going to the astronaut. You're going to die up there." And of course that could be to anyone talking about her room, but that's I can talk about The Exorcist for a long time. The other thing that is, I think, amazing in this, the law of thermodynamics, it says that, or it's the first law or something. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It merely changes form.
Yeah.
And in this one, it's clear that there's a law of shouting thermodynamics, that shouting cannot be created nor destroyed. It just changes owner. But a certain amount of shouting has to happen. And so now that Morgan is out of the shouting business, John Carlin picks it up.
Yeah.
And every line is stated like this. He has no concern for subtlety or anyone else in the house hearing him, because everyone needs to know how crazy they all are.
Well, really, too, it's his turn to be at Collinwood because Bramwell's not there. You see, John Carlin's Kendrick, he was watching the house with a spyglass. Yep, there goes Bramwell. It's my turn.
Well, I think he just saw him clock out.
Yeah, he did.
They have a time clock on one of the trees outside, and he's like, "Okay, you done with your shift? How'd it go?" "Yeah, I brought a lunch. Don't worry." Ching.
They're literally the unofficial tag team of 1841.
They keep the sound going in the house all night long.
They do. I agree with you, because at the beginning of this, now they do change this a bit, because in the prior episode, John Carlin's character gets called into the drawing room. In this episode, when they open it up, he's sitting in it, and Julia Collins, Grayson Hall's character, is outside of it, and she walks in and they start talking, and she closes the drawing room doors. Then she's ready for him to leave after a while, and she opens the door, and there's Melanie saying about death, and she's like, "Oh no!" And it's really there's a good close up of Nancy Barrett after they open the door, and John Carlin's like, "What's wrong with her? What's wrong with It's really good.
Especially in 1841 parallel time, don't open double doors.
No.
Whenever you open double doors, it's gonna be Kendrick. He's mad about something. It's gonna be Melanie coming into the drawing room saying everybody's gonna die. It's Bromwell with his class envy. It's just don't open if you open the window, everything's okay. Someone comes in through the window, they're trying to be stealthy, which, is the one thing that doesn't really exist in 1841 parallel time, because everyone's shouting like this. Here's the woman in white.
Yeah, John Carlin does speak really loud in this, and it's really interesting that he does this, because there's times his character has yelled throughout this arc that he's been loud, but it does sort of feel like he's trying to take Morgan's mantle here.
He is. He takes the mantle, he takes the fireplace, he takes the pokers, he takes the whole thing.
I like how in this episode too, when Kendrick finally before he leaves, he mentions his sister Stella, that but they don't. Though I know the Collins family are lying to him and Melanie about things, they really did not want. Now, I do think that Kendrick's sister's death is their fault, because they could have just bought her off. Now, they've tried to buy him off, and he's just having none of it, and especially after finding his sister's body. And now Gabriel has confessed, or not confessed, but they think Gabriel did it because he said about Stella dying in the house.
Yeah.
So the police want to question Gabriel. I'm not going to spoil what happens to Gabriel, but it doesn't happen in this episode. But I really love Christopher Pennock in this episode, and Nancy Barrett just does an amazing job. Like you said, doing dual performances. And
her shock at herself when she's told about what she does always reads as true.
Yeah, because with these possessions here, we've only actually seen one ghost, which is Brutus.
Yeah.
We haven't seen James. The closest thing we've seen to James Forsythe is in Morgan's Body, and then there's Amber or Amanda, I forget her name, but who's in Nancy Barrett's character's body, is in Melanie's body, and so we've only seen one ghost, and it really provides this. What could happen next? What if Gabriel and Melanie went crazy at the same time? What if Morgan starts going completely, batshit crazy? It's just like you don't know.
It's Count Toffee's revenge. He's switching brains all over the place.
This room is wicked as hell too. It really. By the way, those are double doors too.
Double doors. Watch out.
I think the basement door is just one door, if I'm not mistaken.
It is. Yeah.
Okay. I'm pretty sure that it's just one, but
I've never heard of a basement with double doors. That's a very grand entrance to store the Christmas tree,
Actually, my basement doesn't have double doors, but there's two sides to my basement. So there's one door and then there's another door.
There's the side living and the side with the dead. Got a lot of holes in that basement floor. A lot of problems buried in those holes. Am I right?
Yeah. We'll call it that.
Hey, scamming.
What's your favorite scene in this episode?
Obviously the Pennock ones are really good. Nancy Barrett coming in and finding out what she did.
Yeah.
But I'm sure Nancy Barrett had a lot of practice with that. I married who? David Ford? What? Anyway, and that had to be a shocker for somebody. I know it was for me. And but I like the scene with Grayson Hall and anybody. But I like the scene with Grayson Hall and Joan Bennett where they're conspiring.
Yeah.
About how to deal with the whole problem and who can be manipulated one way and the other way. And that was just a good catty bitchy scene. That scene confirms every paranoid's suspicions of what's going on when they leave the room. Like, see, I knew it.
Yeah, and they've been doing it. That's the thing too. They've been doing a good job sort of conniving together and plotting and planning. Now, they're not planning anything evil per se. They just want to buy people off and people to, be off their property that aren't Collins's.
But it's because it's a scene spoken at a normal volume. There is a pleasant subtlety to it that I really like. It's two people just getting to act, and that's a pleasure.
I love too when Nancy Barrett's in the foyer with them, and they're talking, and Julia Collins, Grayson Hall's character, is trying to talk Flora out of leaving. It's not done by a loud tone. It's not done by screaming. It's just a calm conversation.
Exactly. Which, Dark Shadows even makes those fun.
Yeah, they really do. The one of the best ones too with this too is the fact that you're not sure, because Gabriel is so unpredictable. These possessions are so unpredictable. You don't know when they're going to hit. And when you think, well, they're not coming, boom, they're there. And that wood scene is just like, I felt like I was watching a Friday the 13th movie and Jason was just going to pop out and just hurt somebody.
There is definitely some going on there.
It's, I have to correct you. It's mama. Yeah, it's killer mommy, killer. So it's kill mama.
See, I saw those movies in Spanish initially, and it's chi ha ha ha. There.
See, I know because they did that too. Like you had if you did the option for the subtitles and he did it in they do that too. But
do they?
Mine did.
Do the subtitles have the lyrics?
If you put the subtitles on my Blu-ray, it messed now on the first movie it doesn't mess it up. But on the rest of the movies it does, which is weird. And I just think that's just a weird error.
It's only your Blu-ray too.
Yeah, it could be just
the same subtitles that tell you to kill women. But you know that's just, that's not real. And I'm glad we had that talk. Woo!
There are no bodies in my basement, unless that's the story I'm going with. Anyway,
taking a really for a story about a possessed man trying to kill a matriarch. This has taken a dark turn.
The note is really, you sort of do know what's coming at the end, but what still shocks me at the end is the fact that he's so calm and he's holding that knife.
He thinks, or she thinks, he has flowers.
Yep. And it's just like, oh my God, Flora, you want to scream, run at her. You really do.
He wouldn't dare stab Joan Bennett.
Well, that's the thing too. Joan Bennett's characters always get put in these dangerous situations, and you're always wondering, are they going to kill her character off? And this was one. Again, this was a parallel time arc, and you're like, well, is Flora expendable here?
Well, she was up for the part of James Bond in Diamonds Are Forever, and was shooting the show, and so she couldn't take it, and they went back to Sean Connery. But Joan Bennett's bad side is a dangerous place to be.
If Bond would have started, like, if they would have started the Bond movies in the 40s, she would have been a Bond girl.
Yeah. Which one?
I don't know.
I say Tracy.
Oh God, what's the one in
That's on Her Majesty's Secret Service. That's the one he marries.
Yeah, that's the one he marries. But what's the one that comes up out of the water in Dr. No?
That would be Honeychild Ryder, played by Ursula Andress.
I could have seen her or her sister play in that role.
A fun game is to imagine other actors in the white bikini coming out of the water, like Ernest Borgnine. How many different people can we deep fake into that moment?
Oh, there, David.
David. Dana Elcar, Chuck Morgan. The entire diet team of Dark Shadows. They're big boys. The original Chippendales. God bless them.
Oh,
David Ford.
Yeah, David Ford. Who am I thinking of? Oh my God, Robert Rodin.
Robert Rodin is anorexic compared to those guys.
Yeah, but he's tall.
He is tall. His fat goes straight up rather than out. That's the innovation. So, Dan, I've got something new for you.
This tall man who was an athlete coming out of the water in a bikini would be hilarious.
Or it would be, the 2000s version of Casino Royale.
Yeah,
that Daniel Craig comes out of the water there. He does.
He does. Oh my God. That's just funny.
What's your favorite scene in this episode?
Definitely the woods scene between Christopher Pennock and Nancy Barrett in the woods. Really creepy and really unpredictable. Even though I knew what was going to happen, it's still a moment that's still tense to this day. Because when you think of every slasher grain, and really you have to apply that with Dark Shadows to a degree when you're watching episodes that involve slasher-esque styles like this. You have a person who's going around killing somebody with a knife because, well, they're possessed, and their possession doesn't always happen all the time, but it can happen at any moment. So you literally have to be on guard. And this just feels like one of those moments like, oh, Jesus Christ, she's about to get killed. You're not sure. And he hands her a note, and it's like, the note feels like the biggest sigh of relief ever.
But it's just setting you up.
It really was. And it's a beautiful setup. That's the thing, too. The Dark Shadows writers and cast were always great at setting things up for you that left your jaw on the ground, but you wanted more of it.
Sure. Yeah, and it follows a very venerable horror trope of the false relief.
Yeah.
The false dawn that, oh, yeah, now the monster's dead. Everything's okay. No, there it is.
What's another? There's another scene too in this episode where Grayson Hall's character. I love her conversations between her and Kendrick in this episode too, because it doesn't feel like the exact. At the beginning, it's the exact same one they sort of have, but it's shot differently, and I love the way it's shot differently compared to the previous episode. And the fact that when he opens the door and Melanie's in this possession and he's questioning her. Again, he's shouting like you've pointed out. And then she somewhat tells him she tells him that it's because of she's been like this for the past 10 years, which is a lie in a sense. It is sort of because of Justin Collins. That part is a bit true because she did go in the room after Justin. She doesn't tell him about the room though. Again, you have a character, an outsider, as you've pointed out, who's constantly prodding. And now he has a vested interest in Melanie, and he's had this interest for a while. And this episode is Kendrick's ultimate test. Do you really love Melanie? And you're going to find that out soon.
Yes. What are you looking forward to most of the next few episodes?
I don't want to spoil what happens, but the answer to Melanie and Kendrick, does Kendrick really love Melanie? There's that, and there's the flashback that's going to happen while that, but just the conversations post James Forsythe leaving Morgan's body. I know that's a spoiler alert, but once his ghost leaves Morgan's body, and then you start to see Morgan go crazy, it's heartbreaking in a way.
It's the end game,
It is.
And they can afford to do that because they're, ending the show.
Do you think it's one of the most, because we see this guy who makes a lot of sacrifice for his wife. Did you feel sorry for Morgan?
A little bit, yeah. And I think that's one of the great nuances of the show.
Yeah, there's just characters who, just because a character is a heel or becomes a heel, it doesn't mean you can't feel sorry for them because, well, what's the situation? How did they get this way? And Dark Shadows always does a good job of slowly unraveling that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at Barnabas, look at Quentin. Do you think we'll ever get, and I don't know if Big Finish has ever done one, but do you ever think we'll get a backstory for Patofe completely?
No, I don't think so. Well, I think Big Finish has wrapped up Dark Shadow stuff for the time being.
It would be cool.
I would love to see that. I mean, as I probably talked about this before, I have a great origin story for Nicholas Blair that I would have loved to have seen as a Big Finish, but they had apparently gotten done with or weren't going to do or something like that, the Nicholas Blair stuff. So it's a hell of an adventure. It's got some Wild Wild West to it. It's got some jack of all trades to it. It explains a lot.
I have a question for you. Do you want to come on Saturday for Rio Bravo with us?
I would love to.
It's at 10. It's at 10:30 with me, Butch, and you.
I can do that. Someone needs to be a voice for Dean Martin.
Yeah, he's really good. Yeah, he is great in that movie. We were talking about that when we did our Jesse James video. We were talking about how good Dean Martin is in that movie.
Dean's great. I'm a Howard Hawks fan anyway.
Yeah,
And I think this is it is, I'm not the Western fan that you and Butch are. And so I think that makes me an even more honest audience member,
this is
because if the movie is good beyond its genre,
yeah.
that's what I'm going to respond to. And Rio Bravo has that really going for it.
Just think, this is John Wayne's answer to High Noon.
Yeah.
I mean and High Noon's a good movie, but this movie is really, really, really good too. Both are great movies. Don't get me wrong.
If so, have you talked about High Noon?
No, not yet. We're going through the westerns. We did the assassination of Jesse James, because when I chose that for two reasons. One, originally we were going to do it on Palm Sunday, but bad weather hit around Butch's area,
Yeah.
and so we postponed it a week, which was no big deal. And then we did it. Then we did the assassination of Jesse James. I wanted to do another historical figure. And
I have a suggestion.
sure.
I say, do High Noon the next week or another week, and then do Outland with Sean Connery.
Yeah.
That's a remake of both of them in space.
Now, did you know in the movie Outland, I believe it takes place in the alien universe.
That's what I've always heard. Yeah.
Great movie. Great movie.
It is a great movie.
One of the most underrated Sean Connery movies ever.
It's a good inflatable head movie. When you got inflatable heads, when you've got Peter Boyle playing golf in space, and when you got Francis Sternhagen being extra stern and Hagen-y, you got a stew going.
I'm trying to.
It's a Marshall joke.
I got one for you. Jim Fay and John Carlin coming out of the water in a bikini.
Yes. I mean, that was episode 216. In fact, he's talking about Josette's body on the rocks, and it cuts to the rocks, and John Carlin walks out in a bikini inexplicably, and then cuts back to the rest of the action. I remember that.
We got our prisoner episode tomorrow with you and Gordon. Looking forward to that with you guys.
Me too.
Is there anything you want to add about this episode, buddy?
No, I think it's solid, and I'm ready for more.
Yeah, absolutely. Link to the Dark Shadows Daybook Unbound is going to be in the description box. Go pick up that bad boy. Also, a little fun tidbit for Monday, another Friday the 13th, Part 8. Jason Takes Manhattan. Me, Daniel, and Mark should have that video up for you guys. So.
That is the only Friday the 13th movie with a title that is a parody of a Muppet film.
Yeah, here's the thing, too. I like Jason Takes Manhattan, even though Manhattan it takes place in Canada.
It takes place on a boat, right?
Well, for the biggest part of the movie, yeah, it takes place on a boat, but they don't. It takes they use Canada as New York when they get there. Fun times.
It's true. And Canada's cool with it. Canada's our laid back neighbor upstairs.
Well, did you know that? Okay, Death Wish 3. Though it's set in New York fictionally, it's filmed in London.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Michael Winner was an Englishman.
Yeah, he is.
That's why you have Marina Sirtis, running around as a Latina. Yeah. She's in it, right?
Yeah, and here's the thing. Here's the thing too. Bronson does not like to travel overseas, but Michael Winter convinced him. He goes, "No, we gotta take this to London because we can't film in New York. It's too expensive."
It has Gavin O'Hare-Leahy, who I like a lot. He's the bad guy with the reverse mohawk.
Yeah,
The
yeah, Dan,
anti-T. It's the
yeah,
anti-Mr. T.
Dan's son, yeah.
Grig. Grig from Last Starfighter. I don't know if he wore that makeup when young Gavin was conceived. I'd like to think so. And Gavin's also really good in Never Say Never Again.
Did you ever see Dan in the one episode of Rawhide where him and Rowdy Yates, Clint Eastwood's character, are constantly butting heads?
Is that the one with the salad bar? But they keep pushing for the same thing at the salad bar. And it's like, oh, you'll have the garbanzo beans. I'll have the beets, but I really wanted those garbanzo beans. So I love that episode.
No, it's an episode where the cattle boss gets sick or something happens to him and he has to sort of relax or lay down or something or rest. And this other guy who's very used to cattle driving takes the herd and drives them to their destination. And that character who does that is played by Dan O'Healy.
Because he has the ox with the 8-track that he listens to. He plugs in the 8-track and let's say is it Nancy Sinatra, Lee Hazelwood tape.
Dan looks good in a cowboy outfit. He was young.
He wore the chaps with distinction.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Patrick, thank you, man. As always, I'll see you tomorrow night, dude.
I can't wait. Take care, Jewel. Thank you.
Take care. Have a happy birthday.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.